My wife cheated with her younger co-worker, while I raised our daughters alone, so I took full custody and left her with nothing. My wife and I have been married since we were 25. We're 38 now. We met in college, got married, and everything was going great. We both graduated, landed solid jobs, and started building a life together. My wife and I were both doing well financially, so money was never a concern. She worked for her dad's small business while I worked for a large corporation. A few years in, my boss suddenly left the company. Since I was the only one who truly understood how the department functioned, I was promoted to take over. That came with a huge salary bump, better bonuses, and improved benefits. So by the time I turned 28, I was earning almost 3 times what my wife made. That same year, she gave birth to our first daughter. 2 years later, we welcomed our second. Because she worked for her dad, my wife had more flexibility with her schedule. But about 5 years ago, everything changed. My father-in-law passed away unexpectedly. That left my wife and mother-in-law with a tough decision: sell the company or try to run it themselves. My mother-in-law had no clue how to manage a business, so my wife stepped up to the plate. After she took over, the business ran just as smoothly as it did under her father. In fact, she earned a massive raise, more than I was making. I was proud of her. Going from an employee to running the whole company was no small feat. However, our daughters began to suffer from not spending enough time with us. My wife and I sat down to talk, and the question came up: should one of us stay home? She said, "Your company will survive without you. Mine could collapse." I agreed. So I quit my job and became a full-time stay-at-home dad and husband. I handled everything: raising the girls, cleaning, cooking, fixing things, running errands, you name it. I made sure my wife came home to a clean house, a warm meal, and zero stress. For a while, it worked. My wife used to be so appreciative. She'd tell me how much she loved what I did for our family. But something changed about a year ago. She became mean, cold. She'd make snide remarks like, "Do you even do anything all day?" Or, "Why don't you try working for real?" It stung. I gave up a solid career to take care of our daughters and support her dream. I wasn't just sitting around, I was working my butt off every day to make her life easier. Also, my wife has always been very attractive, but suddenly she stopped initiating intimacy. And whenever I tried, she'd say she wasn't in the mood. At first I figured it was stress, from work, from the pandemic, from life. So I doubled down. I tried even harder to make her happy. But nothing seemed to work. Last weekend, our oldest daughter had a softball game. I got everything ready, and we headed out. While we were there, I wanted to record a video for my parents, who live out of state and rarely get to see the girls. I'd forgotten my phone, so I asked my wife if I could use hers. She had been glued to it all day, so I figured it might be good for her to disconnect for a bit. She handed it over and went to grab a drink and snack. I started recording the game, but then a message popped up from some app I didn't recognize. Out of curiosity, I checked it, and what I saw shattered me. It was her and some guy from her office. He's about 8 years younger than her. They were sending each other explicit photos and videos, raving about how amazing the sex was. Then I saw them talking about me. He called me a wimp who couldn't get a real job or take care of his woman. And my wife agreed. I felt crushed, enraged, numb. My heart was racing. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I heard her footsteps returning, so I quickly closed the app and went back to recording. On the drive home, I stayed quiet. When we got back, she tried to make conversation, but I wasn't interested. Later that night, we went to bed, and, for the first time in what felt like ages, she tried to initiate sex. I told her I wasn't in the mood. She snapped, saying, "If you're going to be a little betch about everything, go sleep on the couch." So I did, and I've been here ever since. I don't know what to do now. I feel stuck, broken. My wife used to be my everything. My daughters are my whole world, and now it feels like all of that is slipping away, dying. Any advice would mean the world right now. Really should have mentioned this earlier, but yes, I did take screenshots of the entire conversation. I've got all the proof: texts, photos, videos, everything. It's split 50-50 between my wife and my mother-in-law. 3. I haven't been able to sleep in our bed. I've been staying in the guest room every night, and that's where I'll remain for now. Now for the update. I've decided to divorce her. This morning, I called a law firm located in another town to avoid any local gossip. Thankfully, someone had canceled, and they were able to get me in right away. After dropping off the girls at school, I drove straight there. Long story short, this lawyer is damn good. I showed him everything I had. He looked through the messages and videos, and told me that based on the evidence, my wife is pretty much screwed. He said the court will heavily favor me. I quit my job to raise our daughters. She's rarely home, is actively having an affair, and clearly prioritizes this other man over her own family. That kind of behavior, especially when it puts our kids second, won't sit well in court. He said I'd likely receive child support and alimony, and I'll get to keep the house. She'll have to pay for it as long as the kids are living there. He even mentioned we might be able to push for additional financial support since I've been out of the workforce and would need help getting retrained or educated to find a new job. And yes, some of you were right. He advised me not to look for work until after the divorce is finalized. Since I'm the husband, getting a job now could actually reduce what I'd be entitled to. I asked about custody. I told him I don't mind my wife seeing the girls once in a while, maybe weekends here and there, but I want primary custody. He said because she brought a strange man into our marital home during the affair, I have a strong case. That act alone, he said, puts the girls in danger and makes her look incredibly irresponsible. Based on that, he said I can request full custody. She might get weekends once or twice a month, but no man will be allowed around my daughters. If I find out she's introducing guys to them, she could face serious consequences. The lawyer instructed me to keep quiet until the paperwork is ready. Then she'll be served and legally required to leave the house. He's hoping to have everything prepared by next week. He told me, and I quote, "I know this is hard, and you're angry, but shut the hell up until it's done. Once the divorce is finalized, you can say whatever the hell you want, but until then, act normal. No fights, no arguments, sleep in a separate room, no sex." I agreed. So now, I'm just playing the part, acting normal, making dinner, pretending like everything is okay, until she gets served. Again, thank you for the advice, even the harsh words. And to the one guy who asked for my wife's nudes, apparently all you need to do is ask her. She seems happy to send them to just about anyone. That hurt bad and scared the hell out of me. I'm happy to say I tested negative for any diseases. Now the question I know most of you are probably wondering, am I the biological father of my girls? Yes, I am. And I've never felt more relieved in my life. No matter the results, I would have always been their dad. But finding out I'm their biological father hit me hard. I broke down, overwhelmed with relief, like the ground beneath me finally steadied. I never imagined I'd face a moment where I'd have to doubt being my daughter's real father. Yet that fear became my reality, and the weight of it still lingers. As for what's happening with my soon-to-be ex, she's out of the house. I've been granted full temporary custody. Maybe down the line I'll share more specifics, but for now, just know that my lawyer arranged everything legally and swiftly to have her removed from the home. It wasn't a pretty scene, but that's a story for another time. She was served at her workplace, and from what I heard, it didn't go well. Again, I'll save the details for later. My girls are aware that something's going on. My oldest knows we're separating. One of her close friends went through the same thing with her parents, so she's familiar with the situation. She's been begging me not to split up with her mom. She's cried, pleaded for me to let Mommy come home. It's tearing me apart inside. Per my lawyer's recommendation, I'll be getting them into therapy soon. Someone who can help them understand all of this in a safe and age-appropriate way. My youngest doesn't understand as much. She just misses her mom and wants her to come back. It breaks my heart. There are moments when I feel like the worst father in the world. Moments when I wonder if my daughters hate me now. Sometimes, God help me, I think maybe I should have just let their mother cheat and stayed quiet, just to keep the family whole for the girls, just to keep them happy. But deep down, I know I can't live like that. I've even had moments where I considered suggesting an open relationship and waiting until the girls are older. But that wouldn't work either. It wouldn't be real, and kids notice when their parents don't love each other anymore. My ex is currently staying with her mom. My mother-in-law recently called and asked to meet. I agreed. We haven't talked details yet, but she begged me not to cut her off from her granddaughters. I told her, "You've always been a good and loving grandmother. As long as you can separate what's happening between your daughter and me from your relationship with the girls, I have no problem with you being part of their lives." She thanked me. That was that. Meanwhile, my ex has been texting and calling constantly, trying to figure out us. But under my lawyer's direction, all communication with her is now routed through a trackable platform and limited strictly to matters involving the kids. Nothing more, nothing less. That's where things stand for now. I'll probably keep updating this as things unfold. When it's all said and done, I'll put out a full post with the complete story and all the details I can't share right now for legal reasons. I spent Thanksgiving with my soon-to-be ex and mother-in-law. I did it purely for the girls. And yes, I cleared it with my lawyer first. We made it 100% clear this was for the children, and not a step toward reconciliation. That had to be addressed before anything else. Before Thanksgiving, I met with my mother-in-law privately. We had a respectful and mutual conversation about how we're going to co-parent the girls moving forward. She also shared some backstory about my ex that I never knew. Apparently, back in high school, my ex was cheated on by her boyfriend. Her mom never even knew she was dating the guy, but apparently he came from one of those families. Wealthy, manipulative, bad news. One night my ex caught him cheating. Caught him with his head between another girl's legs. Her words, not mine. Her mom told me she still can't believe her daughter would do something so cruel to me after everything I gave up for her and the girls. She also said that even back when my ex was in college and dating other guys, she never thought those relationships would last. But the moment she met me, she knew I'd be her son-in-law. She said she's truly sorry for what her daughter has done and promised me she won't interfere with the divorce proceedings or try to make things difficult. A few days before Thanksgiving, my mother-in-law asked if I'd bring the girls over for dinner. I asked, "Will she be there?" She said yes. I told her I couldn't do it if she was going to be there. She said she understood but pleaded, "Can we just do one more holiday for the girls?" She told me to check with my lawyer, and if he said no, she'd respect that. So I did. He said to go ahead, but to make it explicitly clear to my wife, through the app, that this was only for the kids, and not to be misinterpreted in any way. I followed that advice. My wife had already contacted me, begging to see the girls, and see me. The girls had been begging me too, so I swallowed my pride and agreed to go. It was awkward. My soon-to-be ex gave the girls a long hug. Fine. Then she turned to hug and kiss me. I sidestepped her completely. Just wasn't happening. When I went over to give my mother-in-law a hug, my soon-to-be ex tried to act like we were still husband and wife, chatting me up, trying to be close. I kept my responses short, only giving her yes and no answers. I helped my mother-in-law finish dinner and clean up, trying to stay as respectful as possible. She's very religious, and she wanted to say a prayer before dinner. My soon-to-be ex sat next to me during the prayer. I held my daughter's hand, and my ex tried to hold mine. I pulled away. I know that might come off as cold, but I just don't want her touching me. I may not be religious myself, but I go along with it out of respect for my mother-in-law. Dinner went smoothly enough, but my ex kept acting like we were still together, asking about Christmas plans, talking about vacations she wanted to take as a family. That was when I realized agreeing to this dinner was a mistake. Once we finished eating, I helped clean the girls up, did the dishes, and got ready to leave. The girls wanted to watch a movie we always used to watch together as a family. I said okay. During the movie, my ex tried to cuddle up next to me on the couch. I chose to sit in a separate chair instead. I could see my mother-in-law was furious with her daughter. She didn't say anything, but the look on her face said enough. When the movie ended, we started to leave. The girls had fallen asleep, so I carried them to the car. I went back inside to grab something, and that's when my ex grabbed me, crying, begging me to work on our relationship, saying she wanted us to be a family again and that she was sorry. Before I could even respond, my mother-in-law came storming in. No joke. She grabbed her daughter by the hair and yanked her away from me. Then she turned to me, said goodnight, and started yelling at her daughter. Yeah, that happened. I told my lawyer about everything. He said I was fine, that there was nothing in my actions that could be seen as a sign of reconciliation. I was clear in all my communication. My wife is still texting and calling, begging for another chance. I'm not replying. I only respond through the trackable app, and only when it concerns our daughters. I'm sure she's going to try to do the same thing again for Christmas, but I don't know if I can go through with it, or if it's even a good idea. I'll be talking to my lawyer about it soon. I spoke with the therapist afterward, and she really seemed to connect with them. I felt good about it. Then came the second session. Everything fell apart. Apparently, the therapist decided it was time to explain, using age-appropriate language, that the reason their mom and I are separating is because she had an affair and betrayed me. I knew this conversation was coming eventually. I just didn't think it would happen this soon. When I picked up the girls, they burst into tears. They clung to me, sobbing, telling me they loved me, and while hearing that warmed my heart, it broke it too. This is not how I wanted them to find out. I asked the therapist why she chose to tell them now. She said the girls already knew something was wrong. They could see how cold and distant I was toward their mother. They knew I was being short with her. Kids are perceptive. They picked up on the tension, and they wanted answers. She said she tried to avoid going into too much detail, but the girls wouldn't make progress in therapy unless they understood the core reason for the separation. She assured me the explanation was simple, appropriate, and honest. She didn't tell them more than they needed to hear, but they now know that their mother was unfaithful. I think my oldest might be able to process this in time, but I'm really worried about my youngest. When we got home, they wouldn't let go of me. They cried all night. I ordered food, put on their favorite movies in my bedroom, and we all laid there together until they fell asleep. Afterward, I went to the bathroom and just broke down. I sobbed. My soon-to-be ex has no idea how deeply she's hurting our girls. She has no clue what kind of damage she's caused. The therapist mentioned medication as an option to help the girls cope with the emotional upheaval, but I immediately said no. She supported that decision and told me it was just something to consider, not a recommendation. She explained that if we were to go down that road, their primary doctor would have to assess them and possibly give them a diagnosis to justify the medication. But I won't do that. I won't drug my daughters just to silence what they're feeling. I want to guide them through this the right way, help them heal in a way that's truly healthy. This entire situation is breaking me down, yet I know I have to stay strong for their sake. And when Christmas came around, the weight of it all felt heavier than ever. My daughters are still dealing with a lot of pain, and right now they don't even want to see their mother. How do I know? My oldest told me flat out. She never wants to see her mom again. My youngest, although not fully understanding, tends to follow her big sister's lead. I was caught off guard. I told them, "You don't hate her. You might be angry, but you don't hate her. She still loves you." My oldest just shook her head and said, "No, she doesn't." Then she cried in my arms until she fell asleep. My youngest curled up with us and followed soon after. So, this is my life now. The girls are doing a little better. They're still seeing the same therapist, and while it's not perfect, they're improving. They're starting to come to terms with everything. They've even said they don't hate their mom anymore, but they've also made it very clear they don't want to see her anytime soon. Their words, not mine. We'll see how things go from here. My wife now knows that the girls are aware of her affair. She tried calling them. She actually got through, but after that, she's been a little more respectful of our space. I think reality is starting to sink in for her. Now, on to the affair partner. I already knew the guy was a POS, but man, this guy is worse than I thought. Someone asked me if I'd reached out to the OBS, other betrayed spouse. I hadn't even considered it, but then I started digging through some work stuff of my wife's and found a paper listing employee contacts and emergency numbers. I dialed his emergency contact. A woman answered. His wife. Turns out he's married, and they have a toddler. I told her everything. At first she didn't believe me and hung up, but a little while later she called me back. She asked if we could meet. We did. When we met up, I showed her all the proof, texts, photos, messages. She asked if we could talk in my car. As soon as we shut the door, she broke down sobbing, crying, "Why would he do this to me? What did I do wrong?" I told her, "You did nothing wrong," and gave her my lawyer's number. Then she asked how long it had been going on. I told her I believed it had been about a year, maybe longer. Her mood shifted instantly, from sadness to rage. I asked her why. She pulled off her wig. It was a wig. She'd just beaten cancer. She told me that after giving birth to their child, her doctors had found a tumor. She spent the last year and a half fighting for her life. 2 surgeries, multiple rounds of chemo, harsh medication. She looked great now, so I never would have guessed. She said she was finally better, cancer-free, but during that time they hadn't been intimate. Between her difficult pregnancy and her treatment, she just wasn't physically able. She said, "I was finally feeling like myself again. I was going to surprise him, do something special for being a loving, caring husband. Yeah, that plan's off the table now." She started crying again, this time about how her child is going to grow up in a broken home. I comforted her as best I could. Then, out of nowhere, she tried to initiate something physical with me. I stopped her gently and said, "This isn't right. You're not in a healthy headspace." She thanked me for being honest. She asked for copies of the evidence. I gave them to her. Then she went home. We've texted a few times since. We're both dealing with the same hell, so it's comforting to know someone else gets it. So thank you to the few people who told me to look into the OBS. I wouldn't have thought to, and I'm glad I did. I laid out the presents from Santa before sunrise. This might be the last year my oldest believes, so I had to make it count. It was still dark when the girls woke up, probably 15 minutes after I finished setting everything up. They came running in, shouting that Santa had come. I dragged my exhausted self out of bed and watched as they tore open their gifts. Their joy lit up the room. Afterward, I put on a movie, and they snuggled up beside me. Within minutes, they both fell asleep. I quietly got up, made some coffee, and sat in the peaceful silence for a while. Later, my youngest woke up and said, "I'm hungry, Daddy." I tied a little apron around her and let her help me make breakfast. Soon after, my oldest woke up, and we all ate together. They played with their new toys all morning and had the best time. It made me truly happy, something I haven't felt in a long time. Later that evening, I had to get them ready to go see their mother and grandmother. Normally, I'm more firm about routines and details, but that night everything felt heavier. Every small step, helping them with coats, making sure they had what they needed, carried the weight of what we were all going through. With everything going on, I'll admit I've become more lenient when it comes to getting the girls ready. They got dressed but made it very clear they didn't want to go see their mom. I reminded them that their mother loves them, even if it's hard right now. Their therapist told me it's important to support and encourage their relationship with her for their emotional development. Plus, if I don't, my wife could potentially use that against me in court as parental alienation. The therapist said the girls can choose, when they're older, whether or not they want a relationship with their mother. My wife has spoken to the therapist as well, and apparently the therapist didn't hold back. She told my wife, "You betrayed your husband, and it's obvious your husband is the girl's emotional anchor. It's going to take a lot for them to trust you again, if ever." Before we left, I reminded my daughters, "Don't punish Grandma for your mom's choices. You're going to see her too." They nodded and agreed. I drove them over. When I arrived, I called my mother-in-law, and she came out to grab the girls and their things. They were going to stay overnight for Christmas. My mother-in-law had asked earlier if they could, so I checked with my lawyer. He said it was fine, as long as it wasn't for several nights and didn't become a regular occurrence. Before they left, I told the girls, "If you want to come home at any time, just call me. I'll come pick you up. No questions asked." As I was leaving, my soon-to-be ex walked outside. I'm not sure what she said to her mom, but my mother-in-law looked confused at first, then gave her daughter a stern, disappointed look. My ex turned to me with tears in her eyes and waved. I just got in the car and drove away. Back at home, I had dinner warming in the oven for the OBS. She eventually arrived. She looked great, wearing a pretty dress, leggings, fluffy boots, and a new wig. I asked where her toddler was, and she said her in-laws wanted to spend Christmas with them, and so did the father. Apparently, she coordinated everything with her lawyer too. Sounded familiar. We sat down and had dinner together. We spent the time getting to know each other, talking about our pasts, sharing stories. After dinner, we moved to the couch and started watching a movie. Conversation drifted toward deeper things, our past relationships, our current pain, things we missed. We shared some wine, just one bottle at first, but then another. I usually don't drink much, but I always have this one wine on Christmas. She asked if she could have some, and I said, "Only if you feel okay." She said yes, so I poured her a glass. The night slowly transformed, from emotional reflection to quiet laughter, to something more intimate. We started joking about our shared traumas, our awkward coping mechanisms, and yes, eventually, sex came up. Kinks, fantasies, things we missed, things we hadn't had in years. Turned out we had a lot more in common than we expected. She told me, "Your wife was lucky, and she threw it all away." I replied, "So did your husband. Some of you might remember when she tried to initiate something last time. I didn't take her up on it then because I felt it was too soon. But now, things felt different. We were both vulnerable, yes, but we were also connecting in a way that felt real." This time I told her, "You can take your wig off if you want. You look amazing without it. You're beautiful as you are, with that pixie cut." She smiled, took it off, and whispered a thank you through tears. We kept talking, sitting close, cuddling during the movie. I was rubbing her chest, more like a comforting massage, and at one point she said, "That feels nice." I pulled back instantly, apologizing. "I'm sorry, I didn't even realize I was doing that." She said it was okay and asked me to keep going because it relaxed her. I asked if she was sure. She said yes. At that point, I was aroused. She noticed and gently started rubbing me. I awkwardly blurted, "Oops, sorry." She asked if I wanted her to stop. I said, "Only if you feel uncomfortable. Don't feel like you have to." She said she wanted to. We kissed. That led to her unzipping my pants. She went down on me and I returned the favor, passionately. What followed was rough, hungry lovemaking, in the living room, the kitchen, and the office. Eventually, we made our way to my bedroom, where things slowed down and turned more emotional, more connected. It wasn't just physical anymore. It felt like something else entirely. We made love again, this time slow, tender, filled with emotion. There was a lot of kissing, holding, whispering. When we finished, we just lay there in each other's arms, crying softly, and eventually fell asleep. The next morning we had breakfast together and showered. I asked her, half joking, "Did you plan all this?" She laughed and said, "No, but a girl always keeps an extra pair of clothes, just in case." As she was getting ready to leave, she looked at me seriously and asked, "Did you feel anything last night?" I was honest. I told her yes, I did, but I also said we need to be careful. We're both vulnerable right now, and our focus needs to be on ourselves and our kids. We can't let temporary emotions or loneliness confuse us. She nodded, totally on the same page. "We'll explore this later, slowly," she said. She gave me a gentle kiss on the cheek, thanked me for a beautiful night, and said she'd text me later. Later that day, I picked up my girls. To my surprise, they said they had a pretty good time. They said their mom was on her best behavior, for the most part, so that's something. Now I'm back home, just finished prepping dinner, planning to spend the evening with my girls. Thanks again to everyone who's followed along. Honestly, these Reddit posts are like therapy for me. And yeah, I don't blame anyone for thinking this might be fake. Reddit's full of trolls, storytellers, and drama seekers. But for me, this is real. This has been my life. The girls are doing so much better. Between their therapist and keeping busy with activities, their moods have improved a lot. They still have emotional moments, but the overall shift has been really positive. As for the OBS and me, we still talk pretty much every day, but nothing physical has happened since Christmas night. We both agreed we don't regret what we did, but it probably wasn't the best decision at the time. We need to stay focused on our kids and healing, not falling into something too fast. Now, my soon-to-be ex. For a few weeks after Christmas, she kept trying, calling, texting, trying to get me to talk, but she's finally started to back off. She's hired a lawyer now. Mine has been informed, and we've been told that our official meetings will begin soon. It seems like she finally realizes I'm done, that I'm not going back. And I'm sure they'll still try to push some reconciliation pitch once meetings start, but it won't change a thing. Every time she reaches out to me now, I don't even respond. Left on red. As for the affair partner, her wonderful co-worker, he's actually been arrested. I won't go into too much detail yet, but from what I heard, he confronted my soon-to-be ex at work. Things got heated. She threatened to call the cops, and he snapped. He assaulted her. Co-workers intervened and basically dragged him out. The police showed up and arrested him on the spot. She's pressing charges. Apparently, he might also try to sue her for damages or retaliation related to the affair, but I haven't heard anything official. My mother-in-law told me all of this. She said he gave her a black eye and busted her lip. Her exact words were, "Karma's a bitch, and this is hers." I haven't seen my wife since that happened. Neither have the girls. Unless something major happens, I probably won't be posting again until after our first legal meeting.